internet dropped. But let's get back to the problem now. Sorry about that, everyone. All right, so we're back to our problem. So if we look at what happens here, I think what we want to do is we want to delete the number of elements and then replace them. So where there's like the add, we basically want to replace them with those elements reversed. So an ugly way to do this, and I'm sure as soon as I do this, I'm actually going to find a better way to do this when I look at the discussions in a minute, but that's okay. The way to do this is to basically say nums.splice. So we're going to do the first half of the array. So in this case, we want to start at index 0. So we want to start at the beginning of the list. We want, actually in this case, yeah, let's delete. So in this case, we want to delete, and let's double check. Let's double check the rules of splice to make sure that we're doing this correctly. Delete count, number of elements you want to erase. So we definitely want to erase. We basically want to grab the first, we already just k elements, right? So we're not doing k plus 1 because in slice it was non-inclusive. So that's why we had to add the plus 1. So in this case, I believe we want to splice. So we want to delete k elements. And what we want is, and this is kind of, this is probably not what they intended, but I can actually do num.slice k plus 1. So I could theoretically extract that to a temporary variable, but we're kind of already doing that. We basically, I'm going to do, because it's a list of numbers, is I'm actually going to spread it. I think that actually works. Let's confirm that this is actually a legal piece of JavaScript that I've just written. Let's see. Yeah. So see how we have 1, 2, 3 here? So that's exactly what we expected. So it works the way we were anticipating. Okay. So let's remove the console log. So that's step 1. So this is step 1. And in this case, we actually want to reverse it. So we want to basically reverse front half of list. All right, so that's step 1. Then step 2, reverse back half of list. So it's going to be the same code like we had before. But instead, this time, we're going to start at k plus 1, so the next number over, and then the delete count is going to be, so this one is a little trickier because we need to actually kind of calculate the number it should be. In this case, it's going to be nums.length, 4, 5, 6, 7 would be of length 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, sorry, length 7. Of course it's 7. Sorry. It's a little later here, so just have to think through it a little bit. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to subtract the number of numbers because we want the last 4, because 7 minus 3 is 4. So we're going to get the last 4 numbers, and then we're going to reverse it. But instead of starting, and then we're going to start at K1. So let's console log step 2. Actually, I should log in. Let's log both of these steps and see the progression of the array. And we wrap this in another console log. All right, so if we run this code, what we see is we get 1, 2, 3. Oh, no, that's not correct. So what we were expecting to see, would be 3, 2, 1. We would see 3, 2, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7 is what we were expecting on the first result. So let's go take a look and see what we did wrong here. So nums.splice, I'm going to take to this. Okay, so we're going to have to look at the discussion definitely. I'm going to do this a very ugly way because I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But that won't work, and the reason why it won't work is because I can't do another array spread because it'll actually end up making a new copy, which is not an in-place operation. So we have to sit here and think for a second there's an obvious way to do this. I'm just kind of starting to see if we can think through this real fast. All right, we're going to step back and use an ES6 method in this case. just to kind of back up a little bit. So we're just going to use a simple for each loop, kind of make it, I don't know, for each to like my old C++ days. We're just going to use a simple for loop. Because I think we're trying to be a little too cute right now and try to use more ES6, ES5 level stuff. But let's kind of go back to a traditional for loop, because this is something I can actually write pretty quickly. So in this case, we're going to do the first for loop, which is let I is equal to 0, while I, and of course the variable can be anything, right? This is just a counter variable. I is less than, in this case, we're going to want k plus 1, because we basically want to keep going until we basically hit k. You could do less than or equal to k, but I think k plus 1, at least for me, that so we're and in this case, okay, so it's a little trickier than that. We actually want to start at k, so we want to start at the kth index in the list, and then actually in this case, we want to go backwards. Let me re-explain why I is less than or I is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so here's what we want to do instead. So this is why the loop is this way. So let's say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and k in this case is equal to 3. So we want to start at 1, 2. We want to start the third number because this is the rotation point, because it's going to be 3, 2, 1, and then it'll be 7, 6, 5, 4, and then we reverse this, and the final answer becomes 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. Correct? That's kind of where we're trying to head at right now. So with that all being said, we want to basically start, so again, erasing this, we want to start at this number, and then we want to work our way backwards. And what we're going to do is we want to actually swap the value. So I think in order to do this, we're going to need a temp variable, the swapped out value. But how does that work? All right. All right, so it's been 48 minutes. Usually I try to cap my attempts at about 45 minutes because that's honestly kind of the most you get before you get diminishing returns. We have, I believe, a almost working solution with the exception of the k rotation here, where we have to subdivide it down. Let's go ahead and abandon trying to do it in place for now. So let's abandon it. And what I want to do instead is let's try to solve this. And then I think what will happen is we will look at a solution for an in-place solution, and then tomorrow, or I should say Thursday potentially, when we come back to stream, we'll start the stream with this problem again, and we'll try to solve it in place without looking at the solution. And I think this will be the pattern we do, and basically I quote-unquote time out and can't find a solution. All right, so we know from running this code, and I should probably have console log that, I apologize. So we're not supposed to return anything, so if I console.log, because we see that we expect 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we get 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. However, if, oops, I didn't mean to close the test case. If the test case is something like 400, is this going to work? And in this case, it actually shockingly does. Is that a coincidence, or is that what we expected? Let's try something a little less. It's wrong, right? So our output is our std out. Basically, our what we tried without subdividing k. We thought it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but the answer is actually 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So it doesn't work, right? And the reason why is because we're not rotating at the right point. So now we have to go back through and figure out what we talked about previously, right? So how do we basically subdivide k down to the point where it's effectively like the rotation we're expecting? So in this case, let's see if we can just try to grok this out manually, right? Before we even try to figure out what the math is supposed to be. That means, and the length of this is 7, right? There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah, so the length of this is 7. And what that really means is every time we go around, we don't need that anymore, right? So it's going to be 300. Let's see, 398 modulus 7. So what is the remainder of 398 divided by 7? So let's do the math, right? So it's going to be 7 times 5 is 35. So it's going to be 5. It goes in 5. 7 times 35, 40.